All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Check out Pig and a Pickle. 2 locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in Marin County from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. They're open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Well, interesting 49er revelations today on the Pat McAfee show as Adam Schefter stopped by to talk Niners and talk football, but most specifically, they got into 49ers with Pat and AJ Hawk. Now, a couple interesting things came out of this. One, Schefter revealed that in his mind, and this is nothing new, that the 49ers traded up with the idea that they were going to draft Mac Jones originally and then fell in love with Trey Lance. According to Schefter, there was no trade market at all during the draft for Trey Lance. So the 49ers did not engage in any trade talks with any other teams during the draft about Trey Lance. But the real interesting stuff surrounds Brock Purdy. And he says, according to Schefter, that Brock Purdy, if healthy, is the number 1 quarterback in San Francisco, and that Sam Darnold has the edge for the number 2 job going into training camp. He says the 49ers are very optimistic that Purdy will be ready for the Steelers at Heinz Field in week 1. He says there's an entire plan in place for Purdy, that he'll be closely monitored in everything that he does this summer. And he was pretty much non-committal if Brock will play at all, or if he plays, how much he'll play in the preseason. So, all right. So what's new there? I don't know that we have anything dramatically new there, other than the fact that they feel like they're optimistic that Brock will be ready for week 1. And that if so, he's the number 1 guy. And there's really no competition and no battle this summer between at least Purdy, Darnold, and Lance for that number 1 job, that Purdy's going to be the number 1 quarterback for the 49ers. I think most of us suspected that would be the case, but now that's starting to come into clearer focus. The other angle on this that I think is really interesting is this is the first time I've heard them suggest that Darnold has the clear edge on Trey Lance for the number 2 job going into training camp. So, to me, I've watched every practice at OTAs. I've watched everything that the media has been able to watch. And to me, Darnold and Lance are pretty much neck and neck. Darnold at times has shown better accuracy. And I think he's more accurate down the field. Trey has checked it down, I feel like, a little bit more in the OTAs. But then there's been other parts of practice where Trey has been, accurate and maybe even slightly more accurate than Darnold. No mention here of Brandon Allen, which is kind of interesting as well. Brandon Allen was the number 2 quarterback to Joe Burrow last year and decided to come to the 49ers to be what, number 4? That always was kind of curious. So it does make you wonder if there's a loser here in this competition. Is that loser going to wind up getting cut? Is that loser going to wind up being waived? Is that person who winds up on the outside looking in going to be traded? That's all speculative at this point. We're going to probably find that out as we get closer to cut down for the final 53-man roster at the end of the preseason. But interesting, kind of things are starting to come into clearer focus, at least on the quarterback situation, that the 49ers, it's, whether they were listening to trade offers or not for Trey Lance, according to Schefter, there's no market there, that there's no team that's come knocking on the 49ers door asking for Trey Lance. And I think ultimately what you're seeing here is you're seeing a quarterback whose cost on the cap is going up and still very much is an unproven entity. And as that cost goes up, he becomes less and less attractive to opposing teams in trade. Do you like Trey Lance? I bet you there's a number of teams that if he were totally free that would be very interested in Trey Lance. But are they interested at $9 million? Are they interested at $10 million? Are they interested in a quarterback whose cost is going to go above $10 million at some point? It sounds like there's no market at all for that. And, as far as Brock, I think this is a decision that they made going into the offseason. But the fact that they're optimistic that he'll be ready for the Steelers in week 1 means that there's obviously been some steps forward post-surgery that give them indications that he has not lost arm strength or accuracy or touch or timing or any of the things that really go into being an NFL caliber thrower of the football. And for that reason, they're optimistic that he'll be ready for the Steelers at Heinz Field come week 1. So that is interesting. And, when Schefter was asked by Hawk and McAfee if there would be a plan in place, what is the deal with Purdy? Is he going to play in the preseason? Is he going to play in camp? Is he going to be on the sideline? They basically, Schefter, without saying the details, because he said, I don't know the details. He said that there is an entire plan in place for Purdy for every step of this thing, from how much he throws, from the beginning of practice as it goes on, all the way through the preseason. And all he would really say is that they will closely monitor him and everything that he does all summer long. And he was totally non-committal on whether or not Brock will play at all, or some, or as much as the other quarterbacks in the preseason. So we've got still some unknowns as far as who's going to play in the preseason, but it sounds like the 49ers very much wanted Sam Darnold, attracted him to come to San Francisco on day 1 of free agency for a reason. And this is now starting to make sense. Sam Darnold did not walk away from starter reps in Carolina at the end of the year to be number 3 on the depth chart here in San Francisco. He probably was assured that he was going to be number 2 if he stays healthy and plays the way they think he can play. And it sounds like coming out of the OTAs, he's shown enough to have the edge over Trey Lance for that second job. What's frustrating about this is, are we ever going to see Trey Lance get game opportunities to show what he's got? And if not, how does he ever, jump over Darnold or jump over Purdy and Darnold and become the starter in San Francisco? Does he have a path to the starting job? It doesn't sound like it based on this Schefter report on the McAfee show with AJ Hawk. It sounds like Purdy's the guy, Darnold's number 2, and, Trey, we'll see. It's all based on what does he show in camp? What does he show in the preseason? So the ball's in Trey's court to kind of win over the 49ers. And it doesn't even sound like Trey is assured of beating out Brandon Allen. I mean, there was no mention of Allen, but Allen, as I said, was number 2 to Joe Burrow last year. Did he leave a number 2 job to come to San Francisco to be a practice squad quarterback and number 4 on the depth chart? That seems unlikely as well. So, what makes sense to me, if I was guessing, is that Sam Darnold was told that, all things being equal, he was going to have a great chance to win that number 2 job. And Brandon Allen was probably told, all things being equal, he's got a great chance to make the team. So where does this leave Trey Lance? Where does this leave Trey Lance's pursuit of the starting job? It sounds like the 49ers have thrown the ball in Trey's court and just said, it's your move. Last year was, hey, we're moving people aside, moving things aside, and creating a path for you to take over. This year, totally different scenario. It's Brock's job with Darnold as the 2, most likely, and with Brandon Allen there to compete for the 3rd job. So it really brings this quarterback picture into clearer focus. What are we going to see this summer? It's hard to say, but very interesting revelation today from Adam Schefter on the Pat McAfee show. All right, hope you enjoyed our 49er video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. And thanks to all of you for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.